Good afternoon, students. The essential question for this lesson is, what is plot? And how does plot create a storyline? By the end of this lesson, you should be able to identify all 6 parts of a plot. We're dealing with Standard Common Core 137C, which is analyze how particular elements of a story or drama interact and how setting shapes the characters or plot. And our goal is to understand plot. One of your assignments as you do this is note-taking. So what you should do is open up the assignment that is called homework number 4. It's a worksheet that you're going to complete as you view this lesson. We're going to work on the skill of note-taking. What I want you to do is, as we move through the plot parts, they're on the left of the table, you're going to define them in your own words so that you're really familiar with the plot parts by the end of this lesson, and you've submitted this to Show Me Mastery and Understanding. A plot line looks like this. You guys may have seen this in years previous. However, a plot line kind of looks like a mountain. At the beginning of the plot, we have what's called an exposition. Then we have a rising action that leads to the middle of the plot, or the climax. And then we fall back down the mountain through the falling action, and then eventually the end of the plot, or the resolution. Let's dig a little bit deeper. The first part of a plot is called the exposition, or the beginning. Like you, all characters in a story have a history, details about their past that are important to understanding their personality and their present lives. It's important that readers know some of these details in order to understand the story. This is called the exposition. It is the background information on the characters and setting explained at the beginning of the story. So if you notice, anytime you open a book, it deals with characters and generally their background and the setting of the story. This is called the exposition. Next in a plot, you have what's called an inciting incident. To incite means to make something happen. An inciting incident is the first major conflict of the story, or the problem in the story that has to be resolved. There can be many types of conflict: man versus man, man versus self, man versus nature, or man versus society. If this one incident didn't happen, we would not have a plot or a story. An example of this is in the story Cinderella. If Cinderella didn't want to go to the ball, we wouldn't have a story. Imagine that she had just said, I'm okay not going. There would be no story. So the problem in Cinderella is that she really wants to go to the ball, and therefore we have a story. Think about a movie or TV show you've recently watched that's a non-reality TV show or non-reality movie. What was the problem or the catalyst that got the entire movie going? That is known as the inciting incident. And if you're not sure of my reference to Cinderella, you can look in the resources, and I do have a link to the story just so that you can better understand or clarify. After the inciting incident, we have the rising action, and this usually takes a while. It goes all the way up. It can be longer in some stories. Generally, this is the longest part of a plot, called the rising action. The story takes shape. The conflicts may develop complications. There might be more characters thrown in there. There might be complications to the conflict, people involved, etc. Writers usually have a really good time making this part of the story really good. There are lots of exciting moments of fun, confusion, or surprise, and it's usually the longest part of the story, and it builds up to the climax. The climax, as we all know, is the best. Another element of the plot is the climax. The climax is when the conflict is resolved. It's usually the most exciting part of the story. Imagine when you read a story that you're climbing up a mountain, and the climax is the mountain peak. It is sometimes referred to as the turning point of the story, when the plot changes for better or worse for the hero. Often the villain is defeated in this part of the part of the story called the climax. After the climax, the story starts to wind down, and this is called the falling action. We're going down the mountain now. It shows what happens after the most important events are over. It starts to wrap up this story. And many stories have varying lengths of falling action. Some stories may even end at the climax. For example, in Hunger Games, it seems like every chapter is a climax, and it ends and it keeps you going on the edge of your seat. And then at the end of the series, the first or second book, you still have another climax that's yet to be defined, hence the sequel. So writers really play with some of the falling action. Finally, you have a resolution. The resolution is a solution. Look at the word solution. It's the end of the story. It occurs after the climax, and it's when you learn what happens to the characters after the conflict is resolved. Resolution, think solution, think ending. Okay? Those are the parts of the plot. Please complete your worksheet table so that you can show me you understand the parts of a plot. We'll be identifying these throughout the year as we progress in short stories, plays, and books. Enjoy.